Hello, everybody. Morning. Excited. We got rates. Woo! Morning, Joseph. Mitzi. All right. Letting people in. Morning, Chris. It's our last time to chat before open enrollment is officially upon us. And as always, I do like to see a face. Makes my life easier instead of staring at names. All right. I started a tiny bit earlier, getting people in. And I know rates are out, so we might be a little light on people today, but that's fine. As always, I will send out the recording. If you are not on that list, if you don't get the email after these with the recording attached to it, a link to the YouTube channel, let me know. Put your email in the chat. If you want to send it just to me or to everybody, you can. I'm happy to send out the link and the recordings to everybody. All right, we are right at the top of the hour. So last one, I will restart these probably, I'm still trying to determine if it'll be February or mid-January. Kind of depends on how brain fried I am. I will try and do it in January just because I know there's a lot of cleanup. Like, what do I do? How do I help? Or I might just record it and then send that out and then start in February. There's a reason we can't just take January off when you work in the marketplace, because everybody's panicking. They don't have their cards January 1st. And not that you necessarily can get their cards, but just kind of how to deal with that first month. And then remember, in January, the open enrollment goes through January 15th, where you don't have to do anything. I mean, up until January 15th, you can just enroll in person like normal. After January 15th, you'll have to have an SEP. Now, an SEP is created on December 31st. So this is a big hint. If somebody's in the marketplace, their plan is ending December 31st. Doesn't matter if they're renewing, doesn't matter if they are going from one carrier to whatever. On December 31st, if they're in the marketplace or on an employer plan, their plan ends December 31st. You get 60 days after that to change. So you can enroll people and change their plans after that January 15th. You go in, you say their coverage ended December 31st. It legitimately did. They get an SEP, and you can actually change them in February. So, and it can happen. Somebody just, their doctor is no longer in that network or with that doctor or anything like that. So it can be useful, or, somebody just totally didn't know that open enrollment was happening and they show up in your office on January 17th, I could change, you can do that. So if they're in the marketplace, you can still enroll them pretty much all the way to March 1st by saying their coverage lot was ending on December 31st. Bernina said, so if someone needs to change their plan this year, do you enroll them now? Also enroll them separately for 2024. Why would they be changing their plan now? There's only 2 months left. They have to you can change it, but why? You're changing deductibles, your max out of pockets, things like that get all jostled. If they want to just change because they don't like something anymore, that would be a 2024 change. Her plan is charging her, she's enrolled in the 0. That seems like you need to dig a little deeper and figure out what's going on. Because if should be having nothing, then why is she being charged 127? Which could be a call to the customer service or agent broker side of that carrier. So today's topic is just kind of a potluck. I have a fairly long list of questions that I'm going to answer. If you think of them as we're going through this, you can put them in there and I will look at the chats later. I'll try and kind of do it at the same time, since this is going to be really kind of sporadic. They're not necessarily, questions aren't necessarily in a specific order, but quick little questions. So one of them is, how do I do my prospecting? So I am a firm believer of networking. I do my prospecting in BNI groups, the chambers. There are networking groups everywhere, and I don't do video or Facebook ads. That's just not my model. Now, I know there's plenty that do great jobs that way. That's just not the way I do it. So my prospecting is usually face to face. You think about, who do you want referrals from and who talks about insurance? Lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, all talk to their clients about insurance. And hairdressers. Who knew? But people will sit in their hairdressing, getting their hair done, and go, what do I do? My insurance is going up, or I don't have insurance, or my kid doesn't have insurance. So if you personally, I would go out, don't just send them an email, go out and introduce yourself. Maybe have a flyer that says, hey, I will help anybody who needs health insurance. It's free to talk to me. I'm local or whatever. So I'm a local person, local meaning the state of Wisconsin. But we do most of our business within probably a 60-mile radius, because people like to come to my office, but I do cover the entire state of Wisconsin. I do not do prospecting in other states. So that's just how I do it. It's worked for me. Other people can, work from home and they do prospecting remotely and online. You'll have to ask somebody else how to do that, but that's just how I do it. What do you do when a drug isn't on the formulary? This comes up a lot. So how formulary drug stuff works is, when you look at the formulary, if there is Humira, insulin is one of those ones that sometimes one type of insulin will be on the formulary and another one isn't. Well, what usually that means is the doctor, if they were on a different one, but Humalog's is there on their formulary, they're going to say, we want you to switch to this Humalog instead of the one you were on. And it's a pretty common practice, especially with insulin. They don't necessarily have all of the insulins available. If the doctor says, my client tried Humalog and is having a negative adverse reaction to Humalog, they would write to that insurance company why they need to stay with a specific type that isn't Humalog. The insurance company will look at what the doctor has submitted, and if it's a valid reason, then they will approve that drug that's not on the formulary. And this is for those expensive medications, those tier 4 medications. Or sometimes they only have the generics approved, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but doctors right now tend to subscribe the most expensive medication first, and they don't even try the generics. They're not even trying the generics. There's a blood thinner out there that is about $1,000 a month. But you could get a drug a blood thinner that's been around for 1 million years for like pennies. Okay, I get it. The $1,000 one is, maybe it works slightly better and you don't have to take it as much as you do if you take warfarin. So warfarin is a much smaller pill and it takes a little bit, but it's like $1. But Eliquis, some of those things, the doctors, they don't know prescriptions. They know what the pharmaceutical has told them. So some of the insurance carriers are basically the ones who are trying to regulate this by saying, we're not approving any of those expensive meds. We're only going to approve generics. Now, there are plenty of doctors and people who have tried the generics and it didn't work. Okay, maybe on the warfarin, they can never get it correct. It's just their blood thin is too high, too low, too high, too low, too high, too low. All right, we're going to switch to Eliquis and it works perfect. Okay. Then the doctor, again, can write a referral to the insurance company why they need to do this. So they're going to say, we have tried. It's kind of like the step therapy things. We have tried this generic version and it didn't work. Here's the reasons why, and we really need them to go to Eliquis. And then the insurance company goes, all right, a valid reason. Typically, when a drug is not on the formulary and it's approved, it's a tier 4. It's going to be the expensive med. So don't, just if you can't find it on the formulary, it doesn't mean it can't be accepted. One, there may be another one. Like I said, sometimes there's 2 of them that are identical. They're just one pharmaceutical company versus another.
But if they're just, and there's sometimes it's a generic version, but they do approve those. No guarantee. Your doctor has to give a compelling reason why you need that specific medication versus another one, or maybe it's just rare, and again, they don't want doctors just signing it out. I've had clients go, how come the insurance company's not trusting my doctor? Because again, doctors don't know prescriptions. They know what the pharmaceutical tells them. And insurance companies trusted doctors, and now we have an opioid crisis. So for whatever reason, CMS and everybody's putting the onus of the drug problem with opioids, not on the doctors, but on the insurance companies. So the insurance companies are doing what they need to do so that they don't get blamed for letting somebody have a 90-day supply of an opioid that they didn't even need. They probably could have gone home with Tylenol, right? So that's kind of where it is. I educate the client. The insurance company isn't trying to say your doctor doesn't know what they're doing, but they don't. Who wants to spend $1 million? Do you want to spend $1 million on a prescription if there's a $10 generic available? Of course not. So they're the same thing. So Brian says, do you think 2024 will revert to normal and start requiring docs again for SEP? Maybe. It won't happen till at least May. So if it does, it won't be till after the Medicaid rollback. And where do I draw the line? Oh, this is a great question. Where do I draw the line of ethical line of helping versus following the rules of enrolling someone according to basically the rules, assuming they can't get private insurance, of course. My rule of thumb is to remember why the Affordable Care Act was started. It was started to help people find affordable insurance. That's why it was started. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make up a fake document. I mean, you certainly could, right? You could make a fake document, put on a fake letterhead. I'm not going to do that. But if the system is letting me enroll people, I'm enrolling people. The onus is on the system. There's a reason it's not doing what it's supposed to do. All right, the onus is on them. So that's where I am. What was the system created for? And what will the system let me do? I'm not lying about making a fake document and stuff. The SEP that I talked about where December 31st, coverage ended on December 31st in the marketplace. It did. I'm not lying. It totally did. Even if they stay with the same plan, the plan they were on ended December 31st, and now they're enrolling in a new plan. It may be a renewal into a new plan. That trick has worked for years. An SEP is never, documentation is never asked for when somebody is already in the marketplace and you say their coverage is ending. It never has asked for documentation. The system isn't smart. It's gonna eventually. A lot of my tricks of the trade are gonna get fixed, but that's one of them. And also so we were just talking about prescriptions. One of the things I wanted to talk about as well is the drug formulary. The insurance companies are doing what they can. And remember, the insurance company has almost no control over the drug formulary. The PBMs do. So OptumRx, CVS, and there's another one. They're the ones who actually control it. I don't know if you've ever tried calling the insurance company to get an answer about a prescription. They send you to whoever is in charge of their pharmaceuticals. Not that the insurance can't approve or disapprove, but they don't control the rates and all that sort of thing. So the pharmaceuticals may not be on the formulary, or it is, and somebody's like, this is so expensive. I recommend and highly recommend telling my clients to go talk to their pharmacist. What does a pharmacist do? Deal with drugs all day. They have to know the side effects. They have to know what it's for. They have to know how it interacts with other things. Talk to your pharmacist and see if there is a generic alternative or a similar alternative that's less expensive. It has been harder because pharmacists, again, they're overworked, overwhelmed with work, understaffed, and so you don't necessarily have your local pharmacist that all the time, but there are those out there. There are some small pharmaceutical, drug prescription places that are small, and absolutely go talk to them. Tell your client, get to know your pharmacist. I think pharmacists used to say more to people.
But then they got slammed for, you know, not agreeing with the doctor. So they just kind of backed off, and they're like, okay, outside of, hey, this, you can't have these two meds together because they'll kill you, which happened to my grandmother. That's how I started talking to a pharmacist. She showed up to pick up prescriptions and he said, I'm not giving this to you. These two medications together will kill you. And she's like, what? You know, and so she got to know her pharmacist, and that's what made me go, all right, I should talk to my pharmacist. When I was pregnant with my my child, I had to take blood thinner shots, which is unusual due to because my blood clots better than it should. So just in case, so I wouldn't get a blood clot while I was pregnant, I took these shots. And my pharmacist was like, this is weird. And we ended up becoming friends. So because he was like, this is really strange. Why would you do this? Well, you do it with shots because then it doesn't go through into the baby. If I had taken it orally, it would have gone into the baby. So it was like, oh, okay. But it was unusual. And he took a moment to just ask me why. I explained why. He was like, okay, that's a legit reason. And then we became friends. And you know, I could go to him. Any of you that are on today or watching these recordings that are in Walmart, make good friends with the pharmacist. Obviously, don't bug them when they're slammed, but ask them, what is it? How does your system work? How can I help you as an agent? What would you, what's the two things you want every client to know? You know, get to know them. And then they're going to go, all right. And they're going to send people to you. They're going to send people to you while you're sitting in Walmart and when you're not sitting at Walmart. Get to know your pharmacist. In what ways do I touch my clients throughout the year? So I touch them in a couple of different ways. One, I send birthday cards. Everybody in my office, all the agents, we all send birthday cards. So everyone gets a birthday card. And I do have a system. I'll probably just stick it in the email that goes out. If you want something, it can be automatic. You can just upload your spreadsheet and the system will automatically send a birthday card out for you. So you don't have to pay attention. But a birthday card, believe it or not, I have clients that email me, text me, call. Thank you for the birthday card. I get messages on Facebook. Some people don't mail stuff like they used to. So if it looks like it came from you and is kind of personal, they like that. We have open houses. Again, my office is a physical office and 90% of my people come in here. We do have open houses. And what I do is bring in experts on alternative medicine. Like, yep, I sold you insurance. Now I'm hoping to show you how to maybe not use it. So I bring in an acupuncturist. I brought in chiropractors. I brought in massage therapists. We brought somebody, a nutritionist, who talked about getting rid of parasites, the benefits of cleanse. I brought in somebody from Shackley to just talk about all the negative effects of cleaning supplies and laundry detergent. And like, this is why you don't want to use that. This is why you want to use a truly clean product. So I bring in alternatives and then show off the office and have some stuff. So that's the second way. We also, this is random, but when a client calls to tell me they got a divorce, got married, had a baby, graduated from college, lost their job, got a job, anything like that, we send cards out. We bought cards that have the cutest little baby feet that say congratulations. So if somebody calls us to tell us they had a baby, I send a message to my front desk person. I go, hey, get me a card for Bob who just had a baby. So she'll get me a card. We've sent out when somebody got cancer, a diagnosis. I've actually sent flowers out when somebody's really going through a hard time. So any kind of life change, send a card. They're like, wow, oh my God, they're not going anywhere. My agent sent me a card and flowers, right? So just little things. It doesn't have to be much. You're just saying, hey, I acknowledge you as a person. And then we periodically send out emails or texts with important information regarding health insurance. No, it's not very much. We try not to bug people because there's so many emails. I mean, there's such a plethora of emails going through. How do I keep sane during OEP? So actually, this is the week that's the hardest for me because we just got all the plans. I don't know about your state, but my county went from 132 plans last year to 103. All right, I lost a few, but I gained a carrier and they are right in the middle. And it's so frustrating because it's going to mess up some people. And some carriers' rates stayed about the same and others went up high. So this is the hard week for me. Once I'm in it,
to me, I love chaos. I think somebody saw my thing back here that says chaos coordinator. I do like chaos. I actually function really well. For those of you who don't, just be as prepared as you can and be like, some things are going to change. It's okay. I used to sit in my office till 1 or 2 in the morning working. I was married, had a small child, and I let my husband take care of her during basically November to December 15th. And then we got divorced, and I had a junior hire who needed me to be home. So I went, all right, I'm going to start doing something different. I leave here at the office around between 5 and 6. And I go home and I have dinner. I pick my kid up. We talk on the way home. I spend that little bit of time with her. And then I get back on the computer and I do emails. So because I'm just, my calendar is back to back to back to back, 30 minutes. I have an appointment every 30 minutes, pretty commonly. Sometimes I think the guys are at 45 minutes a piece, but I've been doing this longer than my 2 agents. Every 30 minutes, I have somebody. Well, I don't have time to check emails. But I don't know about you, but I start looking at emails, and so I dive down that rabbit hole, and it's 7 hours later. So I stop. I decompress from my appointments. I go have dinner. I don't take a ton of time. And then I sit down with my laptop, and for me, I put background TV, cooking shows, typically, nothing that you have to pay attention to a plot. And then I just go through emails at night. That's just how I've done it. I've never missed anybody in open enrollment, and I work Saturdays and Sundays, but I do it from home or the office because sometimes it's quieter here. And then in December, if we have desperate need, we will open our Saturdays. I always keep Sunday free. I don't care if you think you can work 7 days a week, you have to take a break. I put a half-hour lunch on everybody's calendar in my office for open enrollment. And I said, okay, I know you're going to finish the first morning appointments. You're going to get to that lunch and think, let me just catch up on some notes. You actually will refresh your brain better if you just stand up, go outside, take a couple breaths, fresh air, maybe grab a snack, maybe eat, and then come back. If you don't, you will actually work more efficient. So that's what I do. I am a wine drinker, so I will have a glass of wine sometimes late at night, and I'm just drinking some wine and typing. And then, if I work till 3 in the morning, I end up having a couple glasses of wine. But I'm trying to work less. I do have less clients this year, but that's how I stay sane. You've got to take breaks. If you think I just got to stay up till 7 in the morning all night, you're not actually working efficient. You've got to take a break. And when you can no longer take breaks, that's your sign to find an assistant. People have asked, when do you find an assistant? If you're working that much, you need to find somebody to take a load off, even if it's part-time, where they're just answering the phone calls for you, right? Something that you can take off so that you can keep working. What should you do? When should you put people in different policies, and how do you quote that? Different policies, and if you're not familiar how to do that, at the end of the application, before you enroll them, when you're picking the plan, there is a way to separate them on Health Sherpa and at healthcare.gov. So that's how you can separate them and put them in separate plans. So I'm going to give you my few reasons of why I put them in separate plans. One person in the family is sick and the other person is not. Well, let me put the sick person in the better plan, lower max out of pocket, better copays, whatever is maybe it's the right doctor. Well, I have a healthy person who never goes to the doctor. Why should they be in that more expensive plan? So I'll put them in a bronze plan. In fact, often what I do is I put them in a bronze plan and I layer them. I give them accident protection, gap protection, the in-pocket, something. If they're healthy, I don't even need to do the in-pocket. I put them in underwritten plans. And it will cost them less to do that than to have them both in the higher plan. And they're usually aware, because they're dealing with somebody who's sick, that they'll buy those layers. They understand that a sick person can decimate their income. So you do that, 2 separate, health issues, 2 separate networks. One likes this network doctor and one likes this one. All right, go on separate plans. There's 0 benefit for 2 people to be in the same plan. If they want different plans, different networks, put them in separate plans. At the end of the year, as you are guys, this is a little bit of a tip for next year. I've talked about this before. Pay attention to your renewals and new people. if one of the people is 65 years old in the next year, quote them at only one person. So quote the, the one who's staying on the plan, household of 2 with the income, but only show them the rate for one person. Because then they get comfortable with that rate, and then you get to say, hey, I'm gonna add, by the way, that's just what it's gonna cost when there's one of you on the plan. You'll get a bit of a bonus. Here's what it'll cost for 2 of you. But if you have somebody who's already in the marketplace and the oldest person, the person turning 65, is listed first, it's often better to put them in separate plans for the next year. Or you have to do the redirect. You have to go to healthcare.gov and you have to swap who's primary and who's secondary. And it's kind of tedious. It takes a long time. So instead of doing that, just explain to them, all right, this year, I'm going to put you in 2 separate policies. It can be the same policy. It can still be Anthem Blue Cross's Bronze 27 plan. But that way, when the Medicare person drops off, the person who was listed second isn't second in the policy. They're on their own. And it doesn't cause all the problems, because when you have somebody who's oldest listed first and you terminate them to go on Medicare, what happens is this person who was secondary ends up canceling that policy. Then they start with a new policy, a new member number, new deductible, new max out of pocket. The auto pay doesn't work anymore, and it causes some hassle. So instead of having to deal with that hassle, right from the beginning, go, all right, I'm going to put you in 2 separate policies. Yes, the secondary person is going to get a new member number and they're going to have to set up a different auto pay, but you're doing it at the beginning of the year so that they don't have to do it in the middle of the year, in the middle of chaos. And the carriers, for the most part, are pretty good. If it was over here and it gets canceled, of moving the max and deductible over to this one, but it takes time and it's a hassle. So list them separately if the 65-year-old is listed first in the marketplace. But if you can do it, make sure you put the youngest person first. And I always tell people that. Now, if you're trying to quote those 2 separate policies right now, none of the systems are smart enough to quote them in separate policies. What I typically do is say, we can do this. We can enroll you in separate policies. And I tell them, just be upfront. The system won't let us do this, but we're gonna do some rough math. Just take whatever the higher, most expensive plan is and divide it in half, and take the second one that you're quoting, so you're quoting 2 60-year-olds in the silver plan, unless I'm throwing out numbers, and it's $600. You say it's roughly going to be $300 for Shirley. And all right, Bob, we're going to put you in this bronze plan and it's $200 with 2 of you. So it's going to be roughly $100. You're going to be paying around $400. Is that doable? Then when you get through, you do the application, you actually find out it's typically close to that amount, give or take. Because what happens is the tax credit does get divided into the silver plan, but if there's leftover, sometimes I've seen the bronze plan cost nothing because the cost of that individual person was less than what his portion or her portion of the tax credit was. So there's no way to do it, but that has typically worked. They understand, all right, this is a rough estimate. We'll know the true numbers once we get to the end. Now, if they absolutely have to get the true numbers, they don't really want to quote, say, okay, let's do this application first. Now we're at the end, the application is there. Now you can start showing them the true numbers. Looking, I've answered a couple of these. How do you know how to quote the cost? What does 40% mean? Such as real surgeries or MRIs and things like that. So I think what Tammy's kind of asking is, you're showing them what the insurance covers and it says 40%. Well, what does that even mean? You can go online, you can just Google this and say the usual and customary costs for heart surgery. What's the average cost? And it'll show you. But if you have a deductible and a max out of pocket and you have surgery or you have 1 night in the hospital stay, you can tell your client you're going to pay the max out of pocket. Even if it's an outpatient surgery, those are 10, 20, 30,000, you're going to pay the max out of pocket. So it may be 40%, But what does that mean? It's still going to be it's going to still typically be the whole cost. Now, if you have a copay plan, that makes it easier, right? It says surgery is going to be $175 or $375. MRIs are typically $3,000 to $4,000. So it says 40% of $3,000 to $4,000. So you can do a search, you can look it up and say, what's the customary, what's the average cost of a procedure, and say, this is just the average. Unfortunately, we do not have upfront pricing. Even though that's the law, you're supposed to be able to go on to any said doctor hospital system to see what it will cost, and you should be able to go to the insurance carrier. Now, the insurance carrier will tell you, but you have to have the specific codes, and you have to have all the codes. America is the only one that if you say, what's the code for surgery, will give you a code for surgery, but then they charge you room charge, nurse, anesthesiologist, the nurse that was sitting around in case something happened. The surgery actually has a long list of codes. If you call Switzerland and say how much for surgery, they'll tell you it's, whatever it is, 5,000. And if you say how much for the room, and they're like, what are you talking about? Well, what's the anesthesiologist cost? No, we told you it's 5,000. So in America, you have to say, well, I would like every code for the surgery. Then you can call the insurance company and go, here's every single code, what's it going to cost? But nobody does that. So it is a little bit hard. You can, if you can get a hospital system to tell you every code, but they don't really want to tell you every code because then they're committed. And they're afraid, well, what if something happens and we have to do more codes? And then it's like, oh, now the charge went up. I checked out, it was going to be 6,000 and all of a sudden my bill's 7. What happened? Oh, well, there was these other things. Well, so it is hard, but you can just look at the average costs and then let people know. When you do this enough for as many years and I love it when people bring me their explanation of benefits, their itemized bills, so we can see how it is. And that's how I glean it. That's how I understand what an average cost is for an MRI, what the average cost is for a colonoscopy that's not preventative, because people have told me. As insurance agents, that's how you learn. Don't be afraid to help people, especially when you're first starting, by asking for the paperwork, because that's how I learned it. I'm like, I don't know. Well, send me your paperwork. Let me see what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. So then I can call the insurance company, go and explain this to me. And then they explain it, or they go, yeah, that was wrong. That's how you learn. Not saying hold hands. You don't need to, hold everybody's hand and do everything for them. They should be able to do some of this on their own. But when an itemized bill or a billing doesn't make sense, help them. Get your explanation of benefit from your insurance company and bring the bill, and let's look at this together. Let's see what we can see. And sometimes you'll go, oh, I get it, or it doesn't make any sense at all. You call the carrier, they explain it, and now you know. So now you can help your next one. I'm a firm believer of why. Why is it like this? And then I ask, so then I understand. Somebody asked, do hospitals offer financial counseling? I don't know if they offer financial counseling, but they usually will set up payment plans. That's pretty common. They can't, as long as you keep paying. But a lot of hospitals are one in our area who's huge, owns their own collection company. So if you don't abide by their rules, they'll send you to collections. And one of the rules was you had to finish paying off a payment plan by a certain amount, but they never told my client this. So he'd been paying every month on time for 2 years, and all of a sudden he got sent to collections, and he's like, what's happening? They're like, oh, well, that payment plan was only good for 2 years. What? Hospitals, you can go to nonprofits. They truly are a little bit better, but unfortunately the for-profits are starting to grow. One person's asked me, how do I reconcile my book of business? You know what? I don't, and I probably should. I have a person now who kind of does part-time work and does our commission statements for us, and we've only recently started doing that. My book of business is so large that unless I lose a lot, I don't even notice it. But it's really running those commission statements. And it is hard when it's the Affordable Care Act, because you're getting paid a month behind, right? So everybody who pays for January, you're going to get paid in February. But on the marketplace, people can wait 3 months before they pay. So sometimes you're not getting paid because the person hasn't paid yet. They paid their January and now they didn't pay February, they didn't pay March, and then in April they pay for February, March and April, then you're going to get your commissions. But if on February you're looking at your March commissions going, or February's commissions mark going, how come I didn't get paid for so and so? And then you reconcile it and they're like, yeah, because they didn't actually pay yet. So it can be a little bit tedious. I know in the states that there's particularly Florida and Texas, where a lot of those no-call agents are, and where clients have been stolen, it makes it a little harder. It's almost a full-time job, or it's a part-time job, and maybe it's worth hiring somebody to follow that. Because once you see the spreadsheet, my person will run a spreadsheet. Hey, here's the 7 people we haven't got paid for. So then she contacts the insurance company and goes, here's the 7 people we haven't gotten paid for. And then they're like, hey, can you submit that in this document? So then she submits it in that document. And then we finally get it reconciled, right? It can take time. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago. That doesn't earn me money. That's not what builds my business. So I don't do it. I don't have time for that, not anymore. Now, if you're not that busy, you have time to do it. But once you start getting busy, is that the best use of your time? Yes, we want to get paid. So, it does bring money in a way, but is that the best use of my time? Or should I be out getting new business and have somebody who works part-time doing that? So I have the person who reconciles commissions is the one who will check that. But you can't necessarily be on it always, right? Because of that delay. So we do it roughly every 4 months is kind of our typical. And even, if they're in the marketplace right now and they're staying with the same carrier next year, they have a 3-month grace period. Now, if they're brand new to that carrier, they don't. You got to get that first month paid in right away. But once they paid, if they are getting a tax credit, even a $1 tax credit, they have a 3-month grace period. I don't tell clients that because I don't want them to wait 3 months, because a lot of them end up becoming overwhelmed and then it's too much. But there is a 3-month grace period. And I am planning, just for you, somebody said this, a couple different people, I am going to try and get ACA experts from other states, from the captive states. So California, Colorado, all of those, the new one, Georgia and Virginia. I'm going to try and get those in next year. They probably won't be on these weekly sessions, as opposed to just having a chat, or maybe I'll send it out saying, hey, California is this time if you want to check in. So I will be doing that. All right, so I'm going to go back over here. I see there's chats happening and hopefully I didn't miss anything. Get all the way back here. The 51 and 52-year-old don't qualify for tax credits on the marketplace. They are currently on a short term. What would be a good fit for them that is affordable? So there is the argument that the marketplace is affordable. If they don't qualify for a tax credit, that means the rate is already less than 8.5% of their income. So if they pay the rate, they're paying the same percentage as everybody else who's getting a tax credit. So it's kind of how you spin it. That honestly, the marketplace is the best coverage. Okay, guaranteed issues, free preventative, there's a cap. It is, as far as insurance goes, it is the best out there. Now, I do understand my 27-year-old who makes, $50,000 doesn't want to spend $300 on his insurance because they never go to the doctor. All right, we put them in a short term so that they're paying $150 a month instead of $300 a month, but they're being protected, because there are the ones that if you don't give them something that's affordable, they won't have any, right? I know that 27-year-old wouldn't have insurance for $300. But I also know 27-year-olds do dumb things. They go, mountain biking, they fall off the ladder, and then they're in medical debt for years. So that's when I offer those alternatives. Now, short terms, any moment, it could be gone. And of course, it could come back. But if you really want to put somebody in a short term, start them December 31st. Because if the ruling comes down, and I know we're kind of waiting to see, the theory is it's going to start on the 1st. Well, if you can enroll them as of January 1st, then enroll them in December 31st. So you can do that. If the short terms go away completely, or they're only allowed 3 months, I
we'll talk about that. There are some alternatives out there. I don't necessarily want to do it right now because I really want you to either get them in the marketplace or short-term December 31st. And it's not long, but it can be complicated, and you need to understand the pros and cons of not being on the marketplace if the short terms go away, so that you can tell your clients. They need to understand the risks. And there are people who will absolutely take the risk. They will. But remember, if they don't qualify for tax credit, that means it's affordable. They're thinking it's, oh, this is too expensive. And I would say, oh, that means you're making enough money that it's already affordable for you. It's less than 10%. Yes, I know it's 8.5, but 10% is easier to remember. Virginia, does anyone have a small group suggestions for disability or individuals that list bill? Same for dental, vision, and life. I'm in Florida. Group is only 5, and then 3 family members. So yeah, I love one, Colonial Life. They work just like Aflac, but they're cheaper. You only have to have 3 people, or yeah, 3. Actually, I think you only have to have 2 people in a job, and only 1 person even has to take it. And it will let you get dental, let you get vision, let you get life, critical illness, disability, accident. So I like Colonial Life, and Manhattan Life will also do that. So those small businesses, and the nice thing is that for Manhattan a little bit, but Colonial Life, because they're actually individual policies. If somebody leaves, that policy goes with them. So I use Colonial Life, honestly, for most of my under 10, because it's so easy, and that gives them all of the benefits, not just dental. It gives them disability, short-term disability and stuff. If you would like a contact with Colonial Life, I've got one. He's great. His name is Maynard, and he will give you the shirt off his back. So I have a great contact, but you can find your local ones. They are also good references in health insurance, because they don't have health insurance. Brian said, just because they don't qualify for tax credit doesn't mean the marketplace is a no-go. Yep. They need to understand it. Are the rates different off the marketplace? They can be, but it's not a lot. It's not like on the marketplace, it's $700, and off the market, the same plan's $500. They're not allowed to do that. It can be a little bit cheaper, and sometimes it has different benefits. They're throwing a little something extra. Just remember, if you enroll somebody off the marketplace and now they qualify for tax credit, that's what happened when President Biden, I'm trying to remember which one, got rid of the income cliff. There were all of these people that were directly enrolled that had to end that coverage and come on the marketplace, but they only got the tax credit for the few months that they were on the marketplace. So if somebody doesn't qualify and you have them directly enrolled, which can be fine, but let's say they don't qualify because they have a great job, and then they lose their job, and now they would qualify for tax credit. Or they're self-employed. I've seen this. People who are self-employed are like, well, I make $150,000. And I'm like, okay, but that's what they bring in. That's not their adjusted gross. Adjusted gross turns out to be $30,000, and they could have had most of their insurance paid for. So if you put them off the exchange, you're going direct to the carrier. Be aware that that will never get them tax credits if their life situation changes. Now, I have some retired people who are never going to lose it because it's a pension, their 401k, their social security, whatever, they make it's fixed income that is significantly high, good for them. Okay, they're never going to suddenly lose their social security. I mean, they might, but you know what I'm saying? Okay, I could use them direct, but I typically just put them on the marketplace. Joseph, is this covered in any of your courses? Not sure which one you were asking about, but most of this is. I don't think I talk about my how I touch them, but I do talk about how to separate policies. So will the 2 separate policies for the marketplace eligible couples go over to the company as 2 separate plans in the same if the same plan is chosen by both members? There is a button on Health Sherpa that says enroll them in the same plan if it's the same, like put them together if it's the same plan. Make sure that's not checked. If it's not checked, it will send it as 2 different policies. that was one of my requests from Health Sherpa. I needed them to do it because the HSA that this person needed was a non-embedded, I always get those confused, but non-embedded HSA. So even though the HSA deductible was $3,000,
it was a family. They had to reach 6,000 before the insurance would kick in as even one person. And they were both, her husband was a sick person and needed the HSA, or she wanted to use the HSA, and she doesn't go to the doctor, but they would have had to pay over 6,000 before the insurance even finally kicked in. And Health Sherpa kept trying to put them together. So I had to make her make a healthcare.gov account so that we could separate them. So Health Sherpa added that button, make sure it's not checked. So if they are going in the same policy with the same carrier, make sure it's checked, and then it will be two separate ones. Just remember, Rosalind said it, when you do it when you're going to put them in two different policies, it's still the same application. Don't make two different applications. It's still the application. Remember in your head, because you got to tell your people this, the application has nothing to do with health insurance. I don't know if you realize this. It's just your contract with the IRS. The application is about tax credits. That's all it is. It's got nothing to do with your health insurance. The application is you making a contract with the IRS on how much they'll pay for your health insurance, how much tax credit you're going to get. Once the application is done, now it's about the health insurance. So application should always be the household together, even if you're putting them on separate policies. Sharon, they can opt out of Medicaid and pay full price, but it rarely ever makes sense. So lower income people, do not put them at their true income. Put them at the minimum or in the first 100 to 150%. So example, single guy walks into my office, he makes 13,000. I'm going to say, think it's possible you can make 15, and I'm going to put him at 15. Turns out he didn't make 15. He makes 13. The IRS goes, okay. The IRS pays the same tax credit for somebody at 14,000, 15,000 as they do at 12,000. They're paying the full amount. The IRS does not care if you make less. The system was they tried to fix it. So then in the states like Florida and Texas, where they don't have a very good Medicaid system at all, they said, well, how about if the state doesn't have a Medicaid system and they're denied coverage, they just get the tax credit? And most people were for it, but for some reason, when they had the long list of things, that was one of the ones that got dropped. And now, of course, they're arguing about everything. They can't agree on anything. That's how the system is supposed to be. Why was the Affordable Care Act created? To make affordable insurance for those who couldn't get it through their job. If you have a Medicaid system that covers them, yeah, great, wonderful. But if you have a Medicaid system that doesn't, you're going to pay for it, because they're going to go to the hospital when they have something major happen, and the hospital isn't going to get the money from them. They're going to get it from you in taxes. Wouldn't it be better that they had coverage so that when their heart first started not feeling so good, they just went to urgent care? Instead of waiting until they have a full blown out stroke, heart attack, and now they're in the hospital for 3 weeks. And get them insurance, because it's possible they could make that much. We're guessing. There is no guarantee on what income is. You have no idea what could happen. Somebody's like, I've had this job for 37 years. Boom, boom, boom. I get the same amount every year. And then they lose their job. There's no guarantee. The IRS is not going to penalize you for making less money. But you are going to penalize that person because they don't make enough money. Remember, it's an estimate. They do have to file taxes. If you have a person who is living with another person, I see this often, somebody who's 60, they come from overseas, all right? They're 68 years old, they don't get free Medicare, they're going on the marketplace, and they're somebody's dependent. Do they have to stay as dependent? If they do, well, then you have to use the whole household's income. But if they don't have to be a dependent in order to stay here or whatnot, how about you pay them, mom, who brought their mother over, $1,000 a month, or $1,200, you're going to pay them $15,000 in cash. They're going to file with the IRS that they made $15,000 in cash, and the IRS is like, you don't owe us anything. You're good. They can still file taxes. And 15,000 or 12 or 14,000 is probably what they're going to be paying for them to live there and to take care of the grandkids. There are ways around this, but they do have to file. So they have to file something. So the IRS goes, yep, you only made 15, whatever it is.
So you can choose different plans from different carriers. Yes. All right. Can a person opt out of Medicaid so they can get on ACA? So I believe I told my story in the past, and I will tell my personal story for this situation. It's how the system is working right now. In Wisconsin, we actually have a pretty good Medicaid system. We are not an expanded state, but we had coverage for anybody below 100 percentile. Everybody for years, many, many years. Male, female, boys, girls, up to 18. Really good insurance, but anybody under the 100% of federal poverty level. So when I first started doing this, I was not making much. I worked 2 days a week in the office, and I went onto the marketplace, household of 3, and it said about my daughter that she probably qualifies for Medicaid. I'm like, oh, all right. So I enrolled me and my husband and my daughter none. And about a month and a half later, I got a letter from the Medicaid system saying she doesn't get it. So I had to enroll her, and I didn't get to enroll her until March 1st. Because I did it in December, and I didn't get the letter till mid-February, and she didn't have insurance. She didn't have insurance for January, February. I was like, oh my goodness. So then the next year, I'm like, I'm just going to say denied Medicaid, because I'm not going to go through that again. So I hit Medicaid, and the system just said, welcome to the family of 3, pick your plan. The system does not ask for proof that they were denied Medicaid. Just telling you how the system works. Now, if you say somebody was denied Medicaid, and at the end of the application, it says, send us proof that they're no longer on Medicaid, that means they have it. Okay, that means they are currently in the state system. Now, maybe they just got the letter on December 15th and you're enrolling them for January 1st. Okay, you've got the letter. But if it ever asks for proof that somebody's not on Medicaid, they're on Medicaid. They are. And there's sometimes people, it has happened and they didn't even know they were. So then you're like, you have Medicaid coverage. And they're like, what? They need to either call Medicaid and cancel it, terminate it. It was an error. They make too much, whatever. Or they need to cancel the Medicare, the marketplace. Okay, they should not be in both. But if you say that you don't want Medicaid, the system at this point does not force you to go into the Medicaid system. Donna, I caught the tail end of the December 31st SEP for the end of the year who are already in the marketplace. Who does that apply to? So what I was talking about is if you need to change somebody on January 17th, they found out their doctor's no longer in the coverage, you can move them for February 1st into a new plan by saying they lost coverage on December 31st. And you can even do that in February, right? They didn't get to find out their doctor for the first couple of months, and then they find out they need to change it for March. Anybody who's in the marketplace who needs to change after January 15th still has 60 days after December 31st. So that's where that would apply. Did you say to do 2 different applications? Oh, we already talked about that. 1 application. After the application, you can go in there and look at different policies. Can we put, oh, this was conversation between 2 people, not relates to me. Thank you for helping us. What would a 23-year-old that didn't file taxes last year, didn't make enough to file, lives alone, not filed as a dependent under his mom's tax? Yep, so he shouldn't be. 23-year-old, he's not living at home. He's self-employed, started this year. He projects he's going to make about 11,000 gross for next year. Who says he doesn't make 15? He has no idea. And it doesn't matter if you've never filed taxes before. You have to file taxes for 2024. All right, I'm enrolling you for January 1st, 2024. You're going to file your taxes. Well, what if I only make $3,000? Great. You just got to file. And then in 2025, same person, you're going to say, I think I'm going to make 15,000. The system will say, that seems a little low from what you, a little higher than what you've reported in the past. Yep, there's been a change. No big deal. You hit number 3 of those 4 questions. If that question comes up, that's that magic question I talk about in other podcasts and in my class. And it won't ask for proof of income. They're just like, oh, okay. You know, you've reported less and now you're or more, and now you're reporting something different. It's possible to make 15,000. Family of 2, it's possible to make 20.
Family of 3, it's possible to make 30. I'm looking at my income sheet chart. It's possible, especially right now. So I put them in self-employed. What do you do? Because you have to, when you're self-employed, you have to say what you do, and you go, I think you could probably make 15. And if you don't, no big deal, but you have to file your taxes. I'm new to the marketplace insurance. Where do I start? I will tell you where to start. My class, which is a perfect segue. So I did give that percentage off last week, and I had quite a few people who didn't see the recording until late. I will do it for basically today and tomorrow. So I will, the same website and code for the 80% off. Thank you, those of you who purchased it. I know some people have already been doing them, and absolutely, I would like feedback if there's something I could have done better or different or explained more. If 7 people say, hey, this part's still a little confusing to me, then I'll know I need to explain that more. So by all means, I'm open to feedback. And those of you who like it, please, leave a review. I appreciate reviews, and I read reviews. So I'm sure if you read reviews, please, I would appreciate a review. You're welcome, Michael, for all the webinars. Thanks for the discount. Absolutely. I want to get this out there. If you watch them, you could finish it before November 1st. So those who missed it, I will again put it in the email that I sent out, that I'm sending out. It's the same as what last week's email. So if you got that, you can do it. Go in there this week, today, and you will still get the percentage off. Did you say if they choose short-term and then lose it in the mid-year that it will not be considered true insurance? Correct. It's not minimal essential coverage. So they don't technically have a loss of insurance for an SEP. Always make sure your short-terms end at the end of the year, or mid-year if they're turning 65. Because you don't want them to be in the middle of the year, they're sick, something happened to them, they now no longer can get another short term, and the marketplace is back to asking for SEPs, and they're screwed. So always, if you do short terms, make sure it's from year to year, so that it's ending end of December, so that you can get them in the marketplace if something has happened. I have a couple that is one healthy and one not so much. She wants husband to have a better plan. Do you file separately? You don't file separately. Remember, application is about your tax credit. Application together, income together. At the end, now you just pick different plans. So the 2 on 2 separate plans, it will give them separate individuals and deductibles. Correct. You have to be careful if it's a family of 3 or more, because typically deductible is ×2. So a family of 2, it's irrelevant. Like you both have your own individual deductible and max out of pocket. But if you have a family of 3 or more, now you have to just do the math. You really have to understand, is it worth it? That worst case scenario is this person is in their own max out of pocket, let's just say 9,400, and these 2 have their own max out of pocket of 9,400. Worst case scenario, all 3 of them are in a horrible car accident and there's no insurance and nothing's paid, and they all have now 9,400 times 3. Is that worth it to save them a couple $100 on their insurance per month? I don't know. I'm not going to make that call for them. That's their call. But you can explain that to them, that if you separate a family of 3 or more, that's what's happening. A student earning nothing usually is on their parents' taxes. So that you have to get clarification. If they are not being a dependent, then yes, you put the minimum, because especially students, all right, they're not making any right now, but then they're going to graduate in May. And I've had somebody call me, take my kid off her plan right now. He's making $150,000. Wow. Yeah, he was a civil engineer or something, and he got an amazing job right after college. If they're a senior and they're graduating in May, they're going to go earn income. Now, if you're in a state that will have a Medicaid system, put the kid on the Medicaid. That's what it's there for. I have a prospect where she missed her open enrollment with her employer. She's a diabetic without coverage, so she can enroll in the marketplace. It's been a long time since I've done it. When you get to the part where it says, is anybody offered coverage from their job, you can click that button and fill out all the details. And there used to be, and I'm pretty sure it's still there, but I haven't done it in a while, where it says, did you miss your open enrollment? And will you, when you have it, be able to go back on? So go through it, make the system decide for you. And then, as Brian said, she can make an appeal to the employer, and some will do and some won't. In fact, it's not really the employer, it's the insurance company. I do group insurance. It's not usually up to the employer. It's the group. And the group's like, no, you missed it. Sometimes there can be appeals that can work around that, and sometimes not. If they don't make the projected income, will they be able to keep the plan the next year? Correct, but you're gonna have to update their income and say it again. Those are the ones you don't want them to auto renew. Brian, I'm in Florida. I typically place people in the marketplace and tell them to go mow the lawn. They could make a living. They could get a job. In fact, I know there was one person, she told her person, do you think you can make this? And he's like, all right. She's like, just get a part-time job. And he ended up liking it. He got a job and he was working in it full-time. Yes, go make some money. But there's no penalty if you make less. So, so I'm reading a long conversation. So no penalty. I read different things. This is a student who is not working, so she should file, and it's zero. It's okay. She has income from her loan. She lives off something. Her parents pay for everything, but don't claim her. Okay, so they're paying for everything. So remember when I was talking about you can edit? All right, they're paying for it. Then they should give her a receipt that they paid her $12,000 or $15,000 in cash. Then she can file, and she made $15,000 in cash. But if you put zero in the system, it won't work. You have to put, remember, it's an estimate. It's my best guess for the future. Oh, thank you, Joseph. If you haven't done so, he highly recommends purchasing my class. I worked really hard on those. There are some things I need to update, but yes, I really appreciate the shout outs. Tanya, so if I forgot to do my FFM certification, will I have to sell it this year if I receive the removal email? Somebody just asked me that. I don't remember it being completely closed, but if it's closed, I would go in there, see if you can. But if it's closed, yeah, you're going to have to sit out. So please go check, go on to the FFM. I don't know what that email said because I'm a delayer, so I don't delay. As soon as that certification comes out, I'm just on it and done. But I'm not sure what the email said regarding that the FFM certification. Go log on, see if you can do it, because I think they're just saying you didn't do it, we're removing you. I'm not sure if it's saying that the training is closed. If anybody else knows that answer, please let me know. All right, Lynette, I got your email. We're way past time, so you guys can certainly go. I know it's the last one. I've heard you discuss the consent forms, but it still doesn't stick in my head. You have them sign a consent form at the beginning and then have them sign something else. Correct. You have to have the consent to do the application. So I show them the quote. They're like, yep, let's do this. Then I'm like, I'm going to text you the consent. Or in my office, I actually have them sign it before they come sit in my office. And then when I'm going through the application at the very end, those attestations, for me, I have a sheet of them sitting here. I actually hand them to them. And I said, all right, check agree or disagree as I read them to you. And then they sign it and date it. And I've got that. I also sent that out text via FormDr via text, and they can just enter it right then. If you're doing a Zoom, record it. If you're doing a phone call, record it. They just want proof that they are giving you consent and that you have read those attestations. So I will be mailing out those codes and the recording. Angel and yeah, Donna, if your short-term ends, they're in the middle of the year, that is not an SEP. It's not a matter of tax credit. They just don't get it. Now, again, this year, nobody asked, nobody cares. They're letting anybody enroll. If they actually call healthcare.gov, they're enrolling them. But make sure the short term is whether you're in a state that lets you do 3 years or not, that ends at the end of the year. Virginia, what is magic? If a pop-up says the past 2 years show a higher income, do you say life change event, loss of job? It's the loss of job one. It's number 3. So For those who don't know, when you put in the income and then it says, hey, your income basically is higher or lower than what has been reported in previous years, select one of these 4 reasons why. It's the one that says job change, retirement, whatever, which I'm pretty sure is number 3. If you click that button, it will not ask for proof of income. So that's called the magic question. Love it. Can I send the attestation forms? I can. I will. I've shared with most of you on FormDr how I do it. I have given FormDr permission for anybody who says, hey, can I just use Chris's at Next Step Insurance? I've emailed them. They're happy to just take the ones that I already have and put them with your logo and your information. I don't know what the cost is. I have a team, so it's a little bit different, but it was, to me, very affordable. So that is kind of it. If you have questions, again, reach out to me on Messenger, on Facebook. I will get to them when I can, but I don't even look at Facebook 90% of the time till the evening. Those who are my downline, I've given you my direct way to reach me. Anybody else, have a great open enrollment. I'm really excited. Thanks again for coming in and being a part of this. And I will talk to you in 2024.